Next, I'm delighted to ask middle school English teacher Andrew Dolan to come forward to honor his dad, Steve Dolan, for Steve's 22 years of service to Germantown Academy. Please welcome Andrew to the podium.
Hi everyone. Sorry, it's gonna be a little long. It's my dad after all. But I can make a few changes. Just give me a second. This part about how lovely it is to be outside, how amazing this structure is that we're all under, how great it is to see everybody's face with masks off, out, socially distanced, of course. Wow. All right, that's shaved off a couple pages. All right. Well. First, I want to say congratulations to all the amazing individuals that are being honored and recognized here today. You've all given so much to Germantown Academy during your time here, and it's clear the impact and legacy that each of you are leaving behind. I'm thankful for the opportunities I've had to interact with each of you, whether brief or extensive, throughout my time here. And thanks to everyone for putting on this event in the last second changes. I know how hard it is to pivot like that last second, and we really appreciate it. Although I was looking forward to standing under that beautiful structure that our upper school students were able to be under for Prize Day this afternoon. But actually, speaking of setting up an event, this feels like a good time to ask you, Dad, when we're going to start on that bathroom remodel you promised we were going to do a couple months ago. I don't think you have anything on your schedule the next couple of months, right? Or years? But now that I think about it, maybe I shouldn't push my dad to start so fast on another project. I guess when one retires, one should have their own chance to dictate their pace, what they want to do. That seems like the norm, a life of relaxation, picking up various hobbies. Except Steve Dolan doesn't exactly do that when he retires. For those that don't know, 10 years ago, my father retired from White Marsh Police Department after 25 years of service, and he immediately entered a full-time position as Germantown Academy's Director of Security. Actually, that's not even completely true. I was told that I had to keep this secret for a long time, but well, what could they do now? It turns out that during the entire year of 2011 through June 12th of 2012, his last day at White Marsh Police Department, Steve Dolan was actually secretly working both jobs full-time. This makes no sense to me, as I struggle to handle one full-time job. But then again, Steve Dolan's just a little different. You'd think that as a middle school English teacher, I'd have a better vocabulary word picked out after planning for this speech to describe my dad. But I really couldn't find one. And if we're being honest, I'm sorry to my literature-loving colleagues, but you probably already know that I'm not really that fancy vocabulary type of guy. It would feel a bit inauthentic if I came up here reading quotes from Shakespeare that I thought connected to him, or spoke of him in heavy figurative language like I was Ray Bradbury or something. See, the Dolan family really only derives their moral compass and inspiration from lines from a true fictional masterpiece, the only one that really matters in human history. Lines like, "You're gonna need a bigger boat," or "I'm familiar with the fact that you are going to ignore this particular problem until it swims up and bites you in the ass." While some here might be offended that I've mentioned Steven Spielberg's classic in the same paragraph as good old Billy Shakes, I think you'd feel different if you saw the passion present in my dad's face as he talks of the emotional growth of Richard Dreyfuss's Hooper, or the historical and mythological allegories presented through the battle with that formidable water beast. Talk to him about Jaws over a beer. I promise you it'll be worth your time. Speaking of time, a few years ago I remember listening to my colleague Pete Jennings speak at our start of school opening meetings about the very topic of time. Pete's always able to find the right words no matter the situation. If you've ever been in a room with him, you know this. His humor never misses. On this day, he was even more eloquent than normal. He spoke of the idea of time and how fleeting it can be. That we need to take a pause and look at each other just a little bit more. Speak to one another and actually be present in that moment. I'm not really giving Pete's speech much justice. My explanation sounds like it's like an 8-minute stretching of that Ferris Bueller quote every kid puts in their yearbook. But anyway, after that morning, I felt inspired. I texted some old friends who I hadn't contacted with in a while. I was able to stay present during every moment of Jonas's opening of school, middle school, faculty meeting. And I listened deeply to my colleagues when they told me of their summer, the joys, the highs, the lows. I wasn't rushing that morning, and it felt great. I declared to the universe that I was going to take control of that upcoming school year. It was a new me, and I was going to soak in every single moment I could. Things would be different. And then I had to skip lunch that day so I could make up a last-second football drill for a practice that I had forgotten to do the night before. Then I couldn't find my brand new water bottle that I had just gotten that weekend. Then, when looking for said water bottle, I locked my car keys inside of my car, along with the paper with the football practice plan. And it was all gone. That dream of a new me was dead, embarrassingly fast. Thank the non-secretarian gods for that security department, though, huh? They unlocked my car and found my water bottle. As I look back on that message that Pete spoke of, I think of my dad. See, the thing about my father is that he wasn't promised much time in this life. Time didn't offer him a carefree, easy route either. Many people don't know this, but he was actually pretty ill from day one of his life. From all accounts, there were doctors that didn't really expect my dad to make it out of childhood. It's ironic that the thing people find the most special about my dad, his heart, is literally the thing that has been the biggest threat in taking him away from us. And that's why you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who has used their time more efficiently on this earth than Steve Dolan. He's just different. I hesitate to imagine a Germantown Academy without my father. I certainly have never known one. I was about 12 years old the first time he brought me to campus to shoot hoops in the basketball gym. On his days off in the police department, he had begun to pick up extra work, helping out with large events that the school was holding. He still brags to me about how his first official day was working at the boys' basketball game playing against future Hall of Famer Kobe Bryant. I've still yet to hear a legitimate reason as to why his oldest son, who was insanely obsessed with basketball at the time and was known throughout multiple neighborhoods as the basketball jersey-wearing kid, and campaigned diligently just months later to name their first dog, Kobe, was not invited to that particular game. 25 years later, and it still burns. To my brothers, Shane and Ryan, coming to GA's campus on the weekends was like going to Disney World. They had full access of basketball courts, beautiful fields, and a wrestling room where they could smash each other's heads into walls. What's not to love? Perhaps it was because I was a bit older and a bit jaded from missing that Kobe Bryant game, but I didn't have that immediate love for Germantown Academy that my father and brothers developed. I wasn't exactly the type of teenager that would opt to spend his weekend at a school he didn't go to, just for fun. I found it perplexing that my dad, a corporal in the police department, a former fire chief, a man who during his time in the Air Force was stationed in England and traveled throughout Europe with his base playing soccer against other military teams, would seem to show more pride in a private school in Fort Washington than all those other stints from his past. He never mentioned those things. It was all GA, all the time. I mean, I know that Lost and Found had some really great gear that he could bring home at the end of the summer, but I just couldn't understand why he wanted to spend all his time here. And I'm sure my mom would agree at the time, as she was the one who had to manage the constant influx of GA mugs and glassware that somehow continued to enter the Dolan home every single summer. It wasn't until I came to GA to visit my dad when I was home from college that I began to understand why he loved being here so much. It wasn't really just the place. It was the people. And people loved talking to my dad, and he loved talking to them. Steve Dolan's a people pleaser. He always has been. He loves the idea of making someone else's day better. It's something he's just able to do instantly. There's some people on this earth that just, have it, that gravitas, that magnetism. I wish I knew how to describe it, but he has it. At times I've thought that I've had it, and then other times I can't even form a sentence correctly when introducing myself to a stranger. But he's different. I think that's what's different is that no matter the importance of the conversation, he's there. He's all in with you. When he asks you how you're doing as you're passing him in the hallway, he actually cares. He wants you to stop and respond. And if it's not, oh, I'm fine, he wants to know why. See if he can help solve it. He has an innate ability to make people feel special in the moment, like they're the only person in the entire universe. He's charming, relatable, and a great time. I don't know many people who dislike my dad, and if they do, and I know this is a little biased, I'm assuming the problem lies mostly with them. If someone asks him for help, even if it's the most inconvenient thing, he finds the time. Hey, we need a van driver to help shuttle baseball players during a trip to Myrtle Beach. You'll have to give up an entire week of spring break. I'll do it, Tim. Steve, I know it's going to rain tonight, and tomorrow's GAPC day, and we need you to set up a bonfire last second at Carey Stadium. No problem, Coach Dents. My child has misplaced his antique vintage violin. We didn't know where he left it, but could you please check the entire 126-acre campus right now? We need it in 15 minutes. Sure thing, unnamed parent that definitely exists because I've heard the saga of the missing violin about 35 times. During my dad's 22 years at Germantown Academy, he's led his department to some amazing accomplishments. He rose from one of 2 part-time security guards working out of a modified broom closet in the upper school to the school's first ever director of security. He will lead the next director of security, fully automated locks on each interior door, which dropped the average lockdown drill times from over 20 minutes to less than 30 seconds. A whole school communication system of walkie-talkies, overused extensively in lower school, underused in middle school, never used in upper school. Over 150 high-resolution interior and exterior cameras, a drastic increase from the 8 that were in our halls just a decade ago. Emergency call boxes throughout the campus, a full campus lightning alert system. Did you guys get something about that? Connected through email, van training, certification for staff, and an established partnership with local law enforcement and a security team of close to 40 highly trained individuals. I guess close to 40, but they are highly trained, right? Right, closely trained on this. Sorry. In both full-time and part-time positions that physically monitor this campus 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. His success in implementing security improvements during his time at GA is unprecedented. Just a few years ago, when being evaluated by the Pennsylvania Association of Independent Schools, Germantown Academy's security was recognized at a platinum level and called a benchmark for all other independent schools in Pennsylvania. John Snippa told me that platinum word was a huge deal, but I really only cared about that second part, a benchmark. It's truly impossible to find words that do justice just how incredibly important this particular position is for a school. I've heard my dad say the #1 job of an academic institution is making sure they prioritize the physical and mental safety of their students. I've always been grateful that I work at the place he and his team are securing. He's always loved this place. And while there's certainly been difficulties, like in any career, I can't imagine he would want to do any of it differently. During my early years here, I felt like I somehow had to try to escape living in the shadow of my father's name. I had this private obsession with proving that I could make my way up the Germantown Academy ladder on my own, trying so hard to prove that I wasn't just some person who was solely given an opportunity because of nepotism. And while handing out opportunities to people that are relatives can be problematic, I have to admit, in all honesty, that without my dad, even though I tried to convince myself I got here all on my own, I wouldn't be even had a shot. It's funny, just the other day I was telling my 8th grade class who are in the process of writing memoirs about their own life, how I totally knew what they were going through as I struggled to come up with ideas about this speech. The joke is there's 5 more pages, they would be laughing. Just kidding, it's not that. I told them how hard it was to plan for a speech about my father and his retirement from GA. One of the kids blurted out, "Your dad works here, so that's how you got the job." 5 years ago, that comment would have driven me absolutely insane. I would have had crazy anxiety about, did everybody else in this school think I was a total fraud? Now, I looked at him, laughed, and said, well, yeah, kinda. I'd like to believe that I wasn't hired. I was hired simply on my own merit, and I'd also like to believe that I wasn't hired because my dad wasn't hired because my dad was some sort of important figure on the campus. And I don't want to think they were just doing him a favor. I've often wondered, though, and this is a good theory that I just came up with 10 minutes ago, that Germantown Academy, having known my father for years, they simply took a gamble. That if I, a person with the same name, Dolan, even had just 1% of what makes Steve Dolan special, I'd be worth having around. And I try every day to embody that part of my father, the part that makes him so lovable, his heart. And it's hard to do, and it's hard to maintain. I've seen him cranky and irritable at times, And when he vehemently disagrees with something, he can be a tough person to be around. Perhaps you've seen it. But I've never seen it ruin his day or his interactions outside of that moment. He doesn't carry negative emotions into the next morning. Even if you've almost run him over with your black Escalade SUV in the crosswalk at afternoon pickup. And he's been complaining about it for hours and hours that night at home. You can be sure as hell that that very next morning, he will be smiling and waving as you pass by and welcoming you onto the Germantown Academy campus, not harboring a single ounce of ill will. I'm not sure how he does it. He's just different. And so he's decided it's time. And I wish I heeded that advice that Pete Jennings offered years ago. I wish I took advantage of the fact that my dad was in the same building as me each day. I wish I grabbed lunch with him more often. I wish I had spent more time coaching teams with him. I wish my daughter didn't lose close to a year of not being able to see him each day when entering the child care center. I wish he could just hang around here for a little bit longer. But that would be for me, not for him. Livy and Avery, they'll get a chance to see their happy pop-up anytime he wants. He has a habit of stopping at Royal Farms convenience store every single time he comes to the house, buying Livy, who's just over 2 years old, a 49-cent bag of goldfish. Fishies, as she calls them. You should see the way she looks at this bag when her pop-up hands them to her. Man, I wish I knew I could just give her a bag of goldfish before I dropped that $75 on that replica model of Elsa's castle. But it might not be the same for me. So it's not really my kids I feel sorry for. It's the students and families and faculty and staff and the generations of people that will never know him as the welcoming face on that crosswalk. They're the ones who are going to really miss out. I know what Steve Dolan does in the morning can simply be defined as crossing guard, but it's so much more than that. He is for some the very first point of contact when a person enters this Fort Washington campus. If it isn't him, it's a member of his team, and that's an immense responsibility. Waving cars through our busy parking lot is difficult enough, but he does it differently, and he does it efficiently. Yeah, he's got that vest and that hat and a cheerful smile. That's part of it. But what truly makes him different is the way he interacts with each person each day. And he makes each person feel special. The "hey buddy, enjoy your day." The high fives and the fist bumps. "Oh, you've been lifting weight, you're so strong now." The fun. Just this morning, I laughed as Steve Mole's son hid his blanket from my father as he was crossing. "You can't have this, Mr. Dolan, it's mine." I even once heard a story about how he presented Liz Buckman's children with their very own Spider-Man walkie-talkies, simply because they loved seeing him use it every single morning. What kind of ex-police officer in charge of the safety of an elite private school does stuff like that? One of my favorite things since Livy and Avery had returned to school this spring is walking them over each morning to that child care center. It's something special watching the way he treats everyone. As Liz Kaufman said to him just recently, "Where were you the other morning? The other security guard was fine and all, but things were different." And I think the greatest gift my dad will leave Germantown Academy is peace of mind. Peace of mind that a child can enter this campus and feel safe. That a parent can go throughout their day without wondering if their child will be hurt or in danger. That a teacher can put their best effort into creating engaging lessons for their students because they don't have to think about anything going wrong in their surroundings. He knows it's an impossible task to prevent anything from happening, but people should feel proud and strong that this team that he's created is as prepared as humanly possible for any event. My father will say that there are tons of other people who contribute to making this campus safe and secure. That without the trust and belief from administration, financial backing from the board, a security staff willing to go the extra yard, that he wouldn't have been able to accomplish anything. He's right. But I'm not as humble as him, and today I say he deserves all the credit. The truth is, Steve doesn't want to be remembered as a hero. He doesn't need a plaque or a space. Heck, I don't even know if he wanted this speech, to be honest. What I know is that he's proud of what he's leaving behind. His level of efficiency is unprecedented. He came to GA close to 30 years ago, and during that time, he's never stopped working towards improving our facilities, making our campus a better place, safer, more inclusive, and more cheerful for everyone that steps on it. If you cut my dad open, you'd see the black and blue colors of that GA flag running right down with the red. I guess that would be kind of like a gross purpley brown color, but whatever. It's going to take a special person to replace what Steve Dolan brings to Germantown Academy. Perhaps the best way to honor him isn't to search for that one perfect individual. That's a lot for anyone to live up to. Maybe the only way we can truly capture what my father brought to Germantown Academy is for us all to somehow channel that relentless energy, that infectious positivity, that genuine cheer, his selflessness, his recognition of being present in the moment, with using his time with others efficiently. As Pete Jennings said in that speech years ago, slow down, look at one another, smile, be present. Feels like he was talking about my dad, and also presenting a challenge that we can all strive towards. If everyone pledged to treat each other the way Steve Dolan treats people, even if he isn't on campus anymore, maybe things won't feel all that different after all.